Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm here with my beautiful wife, Michelle.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
So good to have you with us. We are recording this episode on Sunday, March 3rd, 2019. Thanks for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most anywhere you get podcasts. One place you cannot find us anymore, and it's a funny story, sort of. We're not on 1057max.com anymore. It's a long story. If you want to contact us and find out about it, there's no fault of our own, but it's just kind of going through a little circumstance with them. So we may be on there again at some point, but right now we're not. Shouldn't affect how you still get our podcast.
That's right. And we do hope that you enjoy our podcast and that you subscribe, because we really enjoy that. And we also like to hear from you. Absolutely.
So you can find us. We have our own website, and I've been keeping it more up to date recently, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. You can also, of course, find us, and like Michelle just suggested, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We're pretty much most places you find podcasts. If you know of a place that we are not on, where you normally get your podcast, let us know, because we'd love to actually get onto that group as well.
Right. We want to be out there and make ourselves very available to anybody who would like to listen.
Yes. Speaking of making us available to you, we love hearing from you. This is an interactive show. You can find us all over social media, on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast, and you can email us, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. And please do let us know your thoughts of our podcast, things that you think we could do a little better, or some topics, because we like to, really get some, new creativity from just what we come up with.
Yes, because believe me, we're a little limited. Sometimes like, what are we going to talk about this week? I don't know. We figure something out usually every week, but we do appreciate any help from anybody out there. By the way, I want to give a special shout out to Dillo's Diz,
right,
who is doing some fun stuff on Twitter, well, actually in social media and out there in the Disney community this week. They're doing a fun little bracket. It is March Madness time. They're doing a fun bracket. They called it, and get this name, it's the Dillo's Diz, my favorite thing about Disney ever this year, March Madness Mania Pool. It's really funny. We were going through it and filling it out a little bit yesterday. It's a really tough bracket.
Painful.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Some tough decisions out there.
Fun but painful.
But it's a lot of fun. If you want to get involved with it, you can email Dillos Diz. They'll send you the bracket to you. It's Dillos Diz, Dillos with an S, Diz with a Z, at gmail.com, or you could always email us too, and we could send you a version of that bracket as well. But it's a lot of fun, having a lot of fun on Twitter, having a lot of fun on social media, and we love all our Twitter fam that's out there.
That's right. And that's, a great fun thing to do in March. And I know that a lot of people have a lot of creative ideas of doing brackets, and this one is number one in our book.
Yeah, it's really great bracket, but it is difficult. We got halfway through, we're like, we need to shut it down. This is too tough.
I know.
We're going to complete it probably today and get it back out to Dillos Diz, but you might want to take a part in that, because it is a tough decision, but it still is a lot of fun.
Right, but it's fun because it does create some dialogue. We've had some, dialogue. I wouldn't say heated, but some maybe not necessarily initially see eye to eye on things. Mm-hmm. And I think there's only been one thing so far that we actually had to flip a coin to be the tiebreaker.
We couldn't come to an accord, so we had to go for the tried and true. Let's just flip a coin on it, and we'll go with it either way.
Exactly.
So, but we're having a lot of fun with it, and you should join in as well. So originally, we told you last week we were going to do a certain topic, and some things happened this week, and we also realized a few other things. So we've kind of flipped our topic this week, our main topic, and we'll get to that in a little bit here. But first, I want to talk about all the other stuff that we have coming up this week, including just a ton of details about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge came out this week. Disney Cruise Line announces their summer 2020 schedule, and there's a long-awaited addition to Pixar Pier that is set to open very, very soon. But let's get to what our new main topic is of this week, and that is going to be the best of Disney in the 90s.
That's right.
And there's a reason why we chose to do that this week. One, Captain Marvel comes out this week, which is going to be set in the 90s. So we thought that would be a good way to approach it. Also, this week is Disneyland After Dark 90s night. I pretty sure that ties in. I have a feeling Disney thought this out, and they're
Right.
tying that in with Captain Marvel. So we thought, hey, it was a cool era in the 90s with Disney. Why don't we talk about the best of Disney in the 90s?
Absolutely, and it was a great idea to make the switch. Although we are putting a pin in it on the other topic we had announced last week, which was about the comparing different cruise lines. But this one was really exciting and fun to get some information about, and a lot of great memories while going through everything to prepare for today.
Yeah, no question. And yes, we will get to that other topic at some other point. Matter of fact, we've been meaning to get to that topic for months now. We talked about it very early on in the podcast. We were going to do that eventually, and we still will. But this week just fits with the best of Disney in the 90s. So let's get to that main topic. And I think the big thing about, and I don't know how you feel, Michelle, but the big thing with Disney in the 90s was that was the period really when Disney's renaissance, at least in the animated features, took place.
Right. Actually, what I noted was that in January of 1990, so the beginning of the decade, that the CEO at the time, which was Michael Eisner, stated that this would be the decade to expand with the Disney company. So he had a lot of ideas and plans to, like you said, renovate some things going on with the parks, with the movies and everything. So, he kind of started the decade with that plan to make a lot of significant changes.
Right. So here was the team behind all these changes, the Disney Renaissance in the 90s. It was Michael Eisner, Frank Wells. And they also brought aboard Jeffrey Katzenberg, and Roy O. Disney's son, Roy E. Disney, took a kind of a reins, and they kind of held the fort for the Disney name itself in there. So they kind of took the reins, and then they were smart enough to bring aboard Howard Ashman and Alan Menken. And they really did some amazing things. It was kind of like, especially with animation, Disney's animation was kind of lost. It really couldn't find its path. Some of the films that they've been releasing in the early to mid 80s just didn't quite find a foothold as much. I'm sure that there are many of you out there that love a lot of those films, but they just couldn't really get what you got from Disney in the past.
Right.
So they brought aboard Howard Ashman, Alan Menken, and in 1989 they released The Little Mermaid, which of course isn't the 90s film, but that was really what kicked off and started what would become in the 90s this huge array of great, wonderful Disney films.
Right. And you can tell that they really started devoting having great music in these animated features as well, because I think that was sometimes some of the things that were lacking in some of the movies of the 80s. They were, definitely focusing on story as they did in the 90s, but the music was not as front and center. And as we've seen, the music does play a really big role in putting a heart into the stories.
Yes. So let's talk about that. I'm going to go through the list of it. It is a murderer's row of Disney movies that came out in the 90s, and every single one of them was nominated for at least one Academy Award. Some of them didn't win, but they were for at least one, and a lot of times that was either best song or best score.
Right.
And that has.
I have a trivia question for you.
Oh, are we going to do that before we get to the movies?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So in the decade there of the 1990s, how many movies or how many films did Disney release? And that's including Hollywood Studios, Pixar, and Touchstone. Do you want me to give you
I went through the whole list today, and there
was
was movies, because I looked through the whole list as I was getting ready for this, and there was films I've never heard of in my life. So I'm just going to go 55.
55?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the multiple choice.
Okay.
Okay, the multiple choice would be 98, 127,
Wow.
236,
Wow.
or 401.
And this is to theatrical release, or?
I think these were theatrical releases.
Okay. I'm going to go with 120. What was the 126? Is that what the number you gave me?
Yes, that is the number I gave you.
And that's what I'll go with. Of course.
It was 236.
Wow. Those couldn't have all gone to theaters. Really? That's crazy. What
I
a big...
know.
There were a lot of films. Like I said, I was scrolling through it today trying to pick out, because this is the best of the 90s. We're not going to go through everything Disney did in the 90s. We're going through the best of it. And I was looking through, and there were a lot of films they released. And this was, yes, animated, Disney live action. And there was Touchstone that was involved in that as well. So a lot of films got released. That's a crazy amount.
Yeah, I'm looking through the list, and I may be wrong. You're more of
May have been straight to video, too. But either way, they built these films during that time.
Yeah.
But either way, that's a fun fact. It's another Michelle fun fact. We love Michelle's fun facts.
I don't know. Let me know, folks, if you want them to cease and desist.
Never. More Michelle is always a good thing.
Oh, you're too sweet and brainwashed, but I love it.
It's okay. I like this brainwashing. Let's get to this murderer's row of films, and we'll, obviously out of 200 and whatever it was, 236. There were some that weren't as high as these, but these were all just Disney animated films. That
you're going through the whole list, or
just the biggies?
Oh, okay.
Just the big ones.
Like, wow,
I'm not
we're
going
to have
through the whole
2.5 hour show today.
No, we are not going long anymore. Well, maybe occasionally, but not as much as that's part of this thing today. But anyway, 1991, Beauty and the Beast came out. Nominated for Best Picture, the only animated film to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture when they only had 5 places available, 5 nominees.
Yes, that's right.
It did win 2 Oscars, and it won the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. 1992, Aladdin came out, won 2 Oscars. 1994, The Lion King, 2 Oscars and a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. 1995, Pocahontas won 2 Oscars. These were nominated, didn't win, but they were nominated. Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1996, Hercules in 1997, Mulan in 1998, and Tarzan in 1999, which won an Oscar for Best Song.
How funny. That is the exact list that I have here of the highlights.
Well, they were the highlights. I said, that is a murderer's row of great Disney films that were released in the 90s. And like I said, every single one of them was nominated for at least one Academy Award, mostly for music.
Right.
But there, as you can see, there was some for best film, and some won Golden Globes for Best Motion Picture. So crazy cool stuff.
Right. And then there are other really notable films that weren't the animated classics that came out as well.
Yeah, we do have those. There were some live action great films that came out in the 90s, and we'll see if some of mine that I noted matched with your list here.
Yeah, let's see.
1991, The Rocketeer came out, which is a great film, kind of an under-the-radar film, but those of you who saw it in the 90s, The Rocketeer is a great movie. 1992, Muppet Christmas Carol was another great film. 1992 as well, The Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
There was an NHL franchise that came out based on this film from Disney. 1994, D2, The Mighty Ducks 2, which is also another great film. There was a D3 as well, but that one isn't as good as D2. So we don't talk about that one. 1993, Cool Runnings came out. And in 1994, The Santa Claus, also another great film. What else do you have on your list, Michelle?
So I have Pretty Woman.
Okay.
Not necessarily saying these are my favorites, but I think things that were really highlighted and notable.
These are Touchstone films.
Right. Sister Act with Disney legend Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes.
There. Hocus Pocus.
Of course.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes. I had that as in my animated.
The Sixth Sense.
Oh, I forgot that was a Touchstone film.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
And then some, you were talking about some underrated ones. In this list, I included Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh, okay.
And the
Mr. Holland's Opus is a great film.
It
and
is
that's
a
the one
great
that will
film.
wreck you. By the way,
Yeah,
when you watch
yes.
it will wreck you.
And similarly, The Horse Whisperer.
Yeah. Which you like. You like The Horse Whisperer
I do
a
like
lot.
that. But you got to be ready and in the mood
Right.
to cry. And
Which I often am anyway. So.
But that happens when you
whether I'm in the mood or not.
Tangled.
Yeah. Whether I'm in the mood or not, it's going to happen for me because I'm just an emotional wreck. So. Other thing, Pixar hit its stride in the 90s.
Right.
So it had released 3 films in the 90s. Of course, kicked off with Toy Story in 1995, which was an amazing, groundbreaking film. Received 3 Oscar nominations. It won one for a special achievement for John Lasseter, and won a special achievement for, of course, this groundbreaking digital work they did in animation.
Right.
It also was the first animated film to receive an Academy Award nomination for original screenplay.
Wow.
Which is a really big thing
Yeah,
for an
yeah,
animated film if you
right.
think about it. 1998, Bug's Life came out, which is really a great film. It kind of gets forgotten sometimes, I think, out there. But when you get to see it every once in a while, it really was a great movie. It just kind of gets buried by all the other great films that were done by Pixar. And, of course, 1999, Toy Story 2 came out. And there's an argument on what's better, Toy Story 2 or Toy Story. But it won the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Musical or Comedy in 1999.
Right, yeah. I mean, when I'm going through the list here, which, by the way, if you ever want the list, D23 has everything listed there that you could ever want. I mean, there are just so many amazing things that, I mean, we could just be talking forever about this. But, yeah, some great phenomenal things. And yeah, Pixar did bring about a whole new dimension.
Changed animation.
Right.
Really did.
Right.
Changed
right.
animation
Not just
completely.
for the Disney company, but just, it kind of set the bar a lot higher for a lot of organizations.
And they were working on stuff even before that. Like, I didn't mention The Rescuers Down Under, which came out in 1990. It's another good film. That had some of the Pixar's first work in that, some of the computer graphics animation in that. Beauty and the Beast had it. A lot of these films that I'm discussing here kind of used a little bit of that sort of technology within their films, and then Pixar just decided to take it and make their own rather than they were just doing shorts before that. They picked up and decided, let's just do the big thing and make full feature-length films. And they did very well, obviously, we know. Other things that happened in the 90s. Oh, let me get one more animated movie that you didn't mention that came out in the 1990s.
Ooh.
You mentioned The Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993. Great film. 1995, come on, you know it. You love it. It's the Goofy movie came out in 1995. Underrated. If you haven't seen the Goofy movie, check it out. Great, great movie. Love it. We love it so much.
Right. We watched it recently.
Right. So that's a lot of the best of film out of the 1990s. I don't know if you have anything else on that, Michelle.
No, like I said, I mean, when I'm going through the list, there's so many fun ones, so many interesting ones to say, wow, I never thought about it as
don't
being
think of them as Disney films,
right.
related.
Exactly. Like, Father of the Bride. I don't think I would have thought of that one. Alive. But another one that I can't believe I didn't put in the list is Captain Ron.
No,
That's
Captain
a great
Ron
movie.
Kurt Russell.
Exactly.
Yes, Captain Ron.
That is
That's
amazing.
a funny movie.
It is a funny movie. How did that
movie.
not make my list?
Yeah, that's Martin Short in that too.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, is the dad, the family, and Captain Ron's taking them through Caribbean Isles.
Right.
And it's just a funny story.
It is.
Kind of a funny movie. So another big thing that happened with Disney in the 90s is Disney television kind of took off in the 90s because the Disney Channel, it started in the 80s, but you had to pay for it.
Right.
Up until the early 90s. In 1990, I think it was a Birmingham cable company became the first to offer it as part of their basic cable package, and more followed suit. And so you could start seeing this without having to pay the extra fee on top of what you're already paying for your cable.
Right.
And that brought around shows like Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, a lot of shows you know and love started to come out on the Disney Channel.
Right. Gosh, I swear we have the same list. Yeah. So, they had Disney Afternoon, which was 2 hours of half-hour cartoons, so like you mentioned them. Timon and Pumbaa was also on that list. So, and they also had some films that were released that were a series of Winnie the Pooh films that came out. So they had in the 90s Winnie the Pooh and Christmas 2, Pooh to You, which was Halloween.
How dare you say that to me?
I know. A Winnie the Pooh Thanksgiving and Winnie the Pooh Valentine for You.
Nice.
So it was kind of nice that they also kind of went back to some of their, earlier characters with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
They also did a lot of series based on some of their hit feature films. There's a Hercules series. You just mentioned Timon and Pumbaa. There was a series based on Little Mermaid. There were a lot of things that came out that filled the time on Disney Channel that were very popular during that time.
Right, exactly. And there were some TV shows that you might not think about as much as Disney.
ABC shows, right?
That's right. Like Live with Regis and Kathy Lee.
Of course.
Right. And Empty Nest. Dinosaur.
Oh, Dinosaur. That show.
And Home Improvement.
Home Improvement, yes.
Yes.
Of course. Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen.
Right. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. So another trivia question. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So September 28th, 1997. What TV revival happened on that day?
September 28th, 1997. I'm drawing a blank. I don't know.
All right. Thinking Michael Eisner.
Oh, is it The Wonderful World of Disney?
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so that was revived. And
that makes total sense, yeah.
And that's when they premiered the network showing of Toy Story.
Oh, really? Was the debut episode?
Right, yes.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot. I had forgotten for a little bit that came back, and Eisner was, of course, the guy who was out there, like kind of playing the Walt role a little bit.
Exactly.
That they would come out and hit him with a pie or
right.
something. And
Yes.
Funny. Funny stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of good stuff happened with Disney Television. But the parks also weren't. There was some great stuff that happened out at the parks as well. We'll start with Walt Disney World. 1992, Splash Mountain debuts. It had already debuted in Disneyland in the late 80s. Splash Mountain hits Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom in 1992. Following up on, of course, Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin debuted in 1998. And in 1999, you were just speaking about Winnie the Pooh. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh debuted out at the Magic Kingdom Park. I know you do. I
love that ride.
Disneyland also had a lot of cool things happen in the 90s. Fantasmic debuted in 1992. The better version of Fantasmic, by the way, for all you who know Walt Disney World for the most part is better. The Fantasmic show at Disneyland is by far better. Although the seating isn't. The seating isn't, but the show itself is much better. 1993, Toontown opened. That included Mickey and Minnie's house and the meet and greet with them there. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin and the Gadgets Go Coaster all debuted among all the other fun stuff there is to do in Toontown.
Right.
And in 1995, another great attraction at Disneyland that is, believe it's at Disney Sea as well, but as far as in the U.S. only at Disneyland, that's the Indiana Jones Adventure debuted at Disneyland.
Right.
And that is another great attraction for those of you who done the dinosaur out at Animal Kingdom Park. This is a much better version. Go check it out if you ever get to Disneyland.
Yeah, similar technology.
Right. The cars are the same. And everything.
Right. So the Walt Disney World also had a lot of new things, but there was one other happening at Disneyland, which was the redesign of Tomorrowland.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I didn't go over everything that happened out there, but yes, that was part of one of the big things that was a big move at that time, yes.
Right. And interestingly, at Disney World, they had created Mickey's Birthday Land during the season of Mickey's birthday, and then that reopened in 1991. It was closed on April 22nd and then reopened on May 26th as Mickey's Starland.
Nice.
Not sure how much reimagining there. Sign changes. But the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror also happened in the 90s. Blizzard Beach was opened.
Very cool.
And they also, Disney World had a redesigning of Tomorrowland. But there were some very impressive park openings that happened in the 90s.
Well, tell me.
All right. Well, in the United States, Animal Kingdom opened 1998, and it was and is the largest spanning area of a park that Disney has with over 500 acres.
So they can have all the animals out there for sure.
Right. So it also was their first time dealing with live animals instead of just audio animatronic animals. And later in 1999, the Asian area opened up in Animal Kingdom.
Nice.
But one of the really exciting things that happened in the 90s was over in Europe, where Disneyland Paris opened on April 12th, 1992. And one of our previous podcast guests was very instrumental in that opening. Do you remember who that was?
Let me see if I can think of who it was. Actually, I am blanking on his name all of a sudden, which is hilarious because I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of his name.
Lee Cockrell.
Lee Cockrell, yes. I can't believe I was just blanking on his name. It's I'm getting old, folks.
No.
I'm getting old, ladies and gentlemen.
We just have too much information here about what happened in the 90s with the Disney company.
Right. But yeah, one of the things we asked him about, if you ever want to go back and listen to that episode, was his experience of opening Disneyland Paris, because he was out there for several years building that up and helping that open. And he tells a funny story about the only things he could eat at the time because he only could say a few words in French. So, as far as ordering food, there were only a few things he could order. So he had basically the same meal over and over again for a long time. You should go back and check out that episode.
Definitely.
If you get a chance. So, really cool.
Yeah.
One other thing, I only have one more thing. You may have more. I only have one other thing that happened in the 90s that we love. It's a precursor to something we love. And that is that Disney Sports Enterprises began in the 90s. And that was the precursor to Run Disney. In 1994, the first Walt Disney World Marathon took place. And in 1995, the Disneyland Marathon and 5K took place. And that just started what we now know as Run Disney. And they're doing regular races. Now it's only on the East Coast, but for a while it was both coasts. And we hope to be both coasts again before too long.
Right. That is exciting. So very cool.
That's all I have. Michelle, what else do you have? I know you must have done much more work than I did.
I did do a little bit more research. Well, also in the 90s, Hollywood Records was formed, and that really helped bring the soundtrack from these great movies, to life by having those available to everybody. And for the first time, Disney moved into publishing. And do you know what the name that they chose?
I do not. Another Michelle fun fact. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen?
Drum roll. Hyperion Books.
Oh, why don't I know that?
I know.
I should know that, right? That makes sense.
So they released a lot of great kids' books on there. They also purchased Discover magazine. So, these were all great new additions. But, and you talked about it with Mighty Ducks, Disney was awarded in 1993 the franchise for the NHL Mighty Ducks in Anaheim.
The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. And they eventually have changed it since Disney gave away sold that franchise. They're now just the Ducks.
Right.
But yeah, originally they were the Mighty Ducks, and they even had the logo that you would see in many of the live action films.
Right. So pretty cool. Also, the Disney Vacation Club Resorts opened in 1991, and it was renamed Disney's Old Key West Resort in 1996. And another thing that started, which was a topic of one of our recent podcasts, which was Disney Institute.
Oh, okay. That started in the 90s.
That's right. And so, again, if you want to know anything about Disney Institute, our good friend Amy and I talked about our experiences with.
You guys did a great job.
Oh,
I sat back and did nothing. You guys did a great job. Pretty much like I'm doing with this episode.
No. You had a lot.
Michelle doing so much detail work, and I just kind of went through the basics here. So,
another big new venture that Disney got into in the 90s was on Broadway.
Yes.
So they had a very successful stage production of Beauty and the Beast, followed by The Lion King. And really, there was, a team that worked to restore that area of New York and make it a fun and safe area.
Around Times Square and Broadway area, the theater district, yeah.
And so really Disney was one of the major catalysts to make that happen. So, that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, you want it to be, especially if you're going to have shows that you're going to be more family friendly. You'd like the area to be family friendly as well.
That's right.
There was a time around Times Square in the theater district where it was really not. But now it really is.
It is. That's right. The Disney Inn Hotel, which was one of the original hotels that opened up when Walt Disney World Resorts opened, in 1994 started leasing their hotel to the Army. And then later on, the Army purchased it and renamed it Shades of Green.
Okay, yes.
So,
of course.
And another one of our favorite things about the Disney company is the Disney Cruise Line.
Yes.
So the Disney Magic, which was the first of their 2 luxury ships, made its maiden voyage in the 90s. So, and actually, interestingly, people, I think, still talk about the original link that Disney had with the cruise line industry, which was with Premier Cruises. And that was discontinued. And actually, well, and that was discontinued because Premier wanted to go with Warner Brothers. And Disney at the time was trying to do something
Was
with...
that the big red boat?
Right.
Yeah.
So Disney actually tried to get something going with Carnival and Royal Caribbean. That didn't actually come about. So that's why they decided, we'll just
do it ourselves. Yeah.
So, yeah. So those,
very successfully, we might.
Right. So those are all the... I mean, like you said, there's tons of other things that happened in the 90s.
You could go down that rabbit hole if you want to do an Alice in Wonderland reference.
Right.
You can go down that rabbit hole and you can discover so many things that you didn't even think of that happened with Disney in the 90s. But we just wanted to hit most of the best of things that happened with Disney in the 90s. I believe also that was when, in the 90s, is when it was announced at Disneyland Resort that they were going to build California Adventure Park. It was in the 90s. It didn't open until the 2000s, but it was announced in the 90s that they were going to do this big refurbishment out there, change a lot of things involved, open the downtown Disney district and all that. It didn't happen until the 2000s, but it was announced in the 90s.
Right, and it was actually going to be something totally different before they decided to do that. They also announced in the 90s about building Tokyo Disney Sea.
Okay.
So that was announced, but again, didn't open then, but it was announced then. I'm going through this list, and I got to chuckle. Another Disney movie under the Touchstone title was Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo.
Disney really wants to be affiliated with that one.
I know.
That's funny. Hilarious.
So, yeah. Anyways.
So those are what we thought were kind of the best of the 90s from Disney. We'd like to know what you remember from the 90s of Disney. What was your favorite thing? One thing we definitely didn't mention, because I don't know, some people liked it, others not so much. It was the Birthday Cake Castle out at Magic Kingdom Park.
It was beautiful.
Some people, like I said, some people loved it.
I know.
And believe me, this was one of those things that people were... There was very few people in the middle. You either loved it or you hated it, but that was one of the things that happened in the 90s. But
and what was really exciting then, too, was that they had a hot air balloon that was exactly like that. And when they were celebrating, the beginning of this birthday celebration, that it just rose from behind the castle. And if you can find some footage on that, it's pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it was quirky or odd looking, but you knew it wasn't going to last.
Right.
It's like...
But like I said, people had feelings about it one way or the other. Some people loved it, some people didn't, but definitely happened in the 90s. But like I said, we'd like to know what happened in the 90s. What are your memories of Disney in the 90s, whether it be any of these things, whether it be films, television, whatever. Please contact us. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you out there and hear what you remember as the best things in the 90s.
Exactly. And if any of you did a fact check and found something I said wrong, please let us know.
Yeah, probably not, because Michelle has fun facts, and I just go through the list, so I probably got the things that are wrong. Michelle did all the legwork and got all the great information out there for you all.
You did
as she
awesome.
Always does. Let's move on to our next topic, and really it's going to kick off our Disney Stories of the Week, and it's part of the reason also we changed topics this week. One, we did want to tie it into Captain Marvel and 90s Night going on at Disneyland Park, but also there was so much news that came out about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge this week.
Right?
We really didn't want to make this episode. We've gone really long in the last few episodes. We want to try and pare that back a little bit. We don't mind going long occasionally, but we kind of want to shorten it up a little bit, and we figured if we go through this big old topic about comparing cruise lines and then had to get to all this Galaxy's Edge stuff, we would be going for another 2 hours.
Exactly.
So we decided to pare this down, but we got to get to all this. We talked about this many of these things we actually talked about last week when Rob LeBerry joined us. We had a great time with him talking about Star Wars in the parks last week. You should check out that episode as well. But we mentioned that the going to be debuting the cast member outfits on last Tuesday evening.
Right.
So be on a lookout for that. And sure enough, Tuesday night, pictures came out. We saw more on Wednesday of what they were going to look like. And that was like, great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
they
it's
looked very interesting.
Right.
I thought Rob actually off pod, he was telling me a couple things, like he thinks that they're going to be able to mix and match some of these,
right?
And it makes total sense, that that way, you don't have a bunch of people looking exactly the same walking through there.
Right. And that was actually confirmed in the D23 article.
Yeah. So then, Wednesday, all sorts of more stuff came out, and so
my gosh,
much. Like it wouldn't stop. It was just flooding out all this stuff about Galaxy's Edge. So let's just go through it. A lot of this came from D23.com, also a little from Polygon.com. But we'll just kind of go through these. These are from those various sources. So here we go. In their efforts to defeat the First Order, the Resistance, this is talking about Black Spire Outpost, but too, of course. The First Order, the Resistance has temporarily set up shop in an abandoned ancient base encircled by forests, mountains, and rivers on the outskirts of Black Spire Outpost. Throughout the land, in both parks, fans may see some familiar faces, including Rey, Finn, Poe Dameron, BB-8,
Yay.
and Chewbacca, and even find themselves in a face-off with the First Order. All stuff we've been looking forward to.
Absolutely.
Not much of a surprise. He talked about we know this going in. This is some of this is rehashed. We've seen this before, but I think it's interesting to read back again. There are 3 carefully designed entrance points to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, allowing guests to enter via Critter Country, Fantasyland, or Frontierland. And there will be 2 entrance points in Disney's Hollywood Studios. There'll be short enclosed passageways between the lands that are designed to compress. So essentially, you're going to go through there, and it's going to be like you're kind of going through warp,
right?
And then you're going to open up into this brand new planet, almost like you're going through hyperspace into this new area. That's how they're going to solve the question of if you're going from Fantasyland or Critter Country or whatever into this area, how it's going to emerge to you, which I think is great showmanship.
It is. And it's kind of taking from their very basics of the parks, how when you're coming through the tunnel and then you open up into seeing Main Street USA, for example.
Yes.
And so I think they've realized that was very successful, and they've featured that design into this as well, which was very awesome.
Yes, love it. I love it so much.
It too.
There was a lot of stuff based on the attractions themselves. As a matter of fact, there was some that actually kind of laid out everything that would happen to you up until the ride happened. I'm not going to give those spoilers away here. If you want to find them online, they are online. What I will tell you is that on Star Wars Smuggler's Run, which is the Millennium Falcon flying attraction, they're going to have Hondo Ohnaka talking to you, and he's going to be a very, very, they had some film of him in action, very, very advanced audio animatronic. He's what they're called the A1000, which is their newest breed, and so he's going to look really, really great. Also, as you're waiting to get called into the cockpit, you are going to be allowed to go into the crew quarters, the crew cabin of the Millennium Falcon, and just kind of hang out.
Nice.
That's where they have the holographic chess game there, and you can just take pictures and do whatever, and just kind of enjoy yourself until they call you into into the cockpit that you're going to be doing. So that's a fun way to take up some of the time that you're going to be waiting to actually do the attraction itself.
Right. And again, it seemed like they really learned in Flight of Passage to have that queue be very visually stimulating to, distract you from the fact that you're in a line, but that's great. It's so exciting. And this bumps it up a bunch more.
Yes. Where the real spoilers came out was for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, because apparently there were some influencers and some press that got out there and got to take part in everything leading up to it, except for the actual attraction itself, which is a trackless-based thing. So they got to experience what's going to happen there. And that's out there, and it's laid out for you. I'm not going to do it, but let's just say that it sounds fantastic. There's a lot of steps, a lot of interesting things that are going to happen before you actually get on these trackless cars.
You should just share it.
I'm not going to do that, but you can find it online if you want to be spoiled. It's really interesting stuff.
Right. So we haven't gotten to my research stuff yet, because my research things are basically food, drink, and things I want to buy.
That's what I was going to do next. So, well, I want to buy everything. I know. We just stop right there. I'm going to buy everything. So, including most of the food and drinks, by the way, too. But let's go ahead and get to your food and drink list. I was going to go to that next, but if you have the list, let's go through yours.
Yeah, actually, the list is pretty long. And, what's really great if you go online, like you mentioned at the beginning, D23 really gave a lot of information. They give the backstory for the cantinas and the restaurants. So, and my biggest problem is I keep wanting to call it Olga's Cantina.
Olga's Cantina.
Just gotta get
Olga
it
Guerra,
correct.
by the way. Her name is Olga Guerra.
Right. But how creative are the drinks that they came up with there, and that they're, they did have some pictures of the drinks, and so they come in all different shaped glasses and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun just to be in there and have some of these cocktails. They also obviously have some non-alcoholic brews that they're going to have available. But was any of them calling out to you? I mean, we don't know what's in them.
Oh, the fuzzy tauntaun. Come on. I'm all about the fuzzy tauntaun.
I don't know, the Jedi mind trick.
Yeah.
Although it's also cute that they have Jabba juice,
yes,
which comes directly from
Attack of the Clones,
right.
episode 2.
So, that's right. Good. Thanks. I appreciate that. But yeah, so some really fun sounding drinks. Were there other things about the drinks that you found?
No, I just love that, like you said, they were very colorful. They were all different shapes, sizes. Some of them looked like they had some, they put some dry ice in them, so they kind of bubbled and steamed a little bit. And it kind of reminds me of, it's like Trader Sam's in outer space.
Exactly.
Is kind of what it seemed like to me. And I just think it's fascinating and exciting. All the same. And there's more drinks than I thought they maybe have like 2 or 3 things on there, that you could try.
Yeah, right.
They were more... And throughout this whole list of food and drink, there was much more diversity and interesting things than I expected to be there.
Absolutely. I mean, even, for example, the blue milk and the green milk.
Right.
And actually what they've done is they've created something that is plant-based, so more people can actually participate and enjoy it.
Lactose intolerant
That's
or
right.
whatever, have some sort of dairy sensitivity, you can still drink these and try them out. And I will probably try both of them.
Right, exactly. And even at the restaurants, the couple of the food locations, they also have some additional specialty drinks there, and some were, obviously non-alcoholic as well. So they've really put together quite an eclectic group of things to enjoy in terms of drinking while you're there, which were fun. And the food stops sound amazing. And again, all of these things have backstories to them, which make it a lot more interesting. I mean, let's face it, when we go to Walt Disney World and we're going to the Jungle Navigator Company, I mean, how fun that you can see the backstory of how it associates with the ride, the Jungle Cruise. And so it makes sense that they do it, but it's just when you're reading it, it's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the backstory, like we're talking about, one of the food places we're talking about, which is Docking Bay 7 Food and Cargo. They even give a backstory on the chef there, Chef Strono Cookie Tugs. So he's the guy who's kind of taken over. He's cooked from everyone, including working for Maz Kanata.
Right.
And so it's just kind of interesting that they bother, but it's great that they do this backstory into these characters and give you some depth into what's going on there.
I love how they say he's doing a traveling diner for diners traveling.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And I also love that the food, if you read the items of food, and they have a lot of pictures of it out there too, it's very fusiony.
Right.
A little Asian, a little, there's a little African, there's a little bit of Thai. I mean, there's all over the place out there. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of, if you know from Pandora, some of the food examples there. Only this is seems more extensive to me, but I love that there's some curry in there. There's a lot of noodle stuff. There's really some really cool, interesting dishes, and I'm looking forward to trying a lot of them.
Right, and although they're presented in a way that's very futuristic, galaxy far, far away kind of place. They are foods that people will recognize. So they didn't, they really kind of wrapped it up nicely that, yes, it's the foods with a lot of style.
Right. It's almost like these are comfort food kind of dishes. A lot of them are, but they're done up in a way that's very fusiony. There's a lot of vegetables involved, some rice, some noodles, some interesting things. It really is a wonderful looking dishes throughout it, and they look fantastic, yummy. I'm excited to try them.
Was there one in particular that kind of was like, I don't
know. There's so many good things. I mean, I actually, there's a veggie one that I was very interested in, which is the plant-based meatloaf served with a roasted vegetable mash. I thought was kind of fascinating. There's a ribs dish. The oven-roasted burra fish I thought was kind of an interesting dish
I was going to name that one, right?
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you. I was kind of thinking of the fish, the dish is one of things that I would like to really try. But yeah, the roasted vegetable mash and herb gravy sounded so yummy. Again, we always do this show when we're hungry.
When we're hungry. So
what the heck?
So we focus so much on food. It is
we
pretty
never
hilarious.
learned.
Pretty funny. But yeah, and that's not the only place that's going to be serving food. They also have the Ronto Roasters, which is going to have these pod racing engines. If you remember from episode 1, Star Wars episode 1, some of those big engines that they have the flame coming out the back or whatever. They're going to be roasting some meats up there. They have like turkey jerky back there. They're going to have a wrap, some grilled sausage. They're going to be doing through these pod racing engines, which I think is just creative and cool.
Yeah. The theming is just phenomenal. And obviously we were expecting that. It's still really fun and still refreshing to see what they've done to make this so unique.
It's going to really feel like, I mean, we've talked about immersiveness with this land before, and the food choices, the way they're serving them up, I think it's going to just add to this immersiveness and how you feel and, that you're in the galaxy far, far away.
Exactly.
It's really, really cool stuff.
I know. So, do we need to dress differently?
I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to be buying so much stuff from out there that it's going to be interesting. And speaking of that, why don't we get to what you're looking forward to buying out of the shops? Because I know our bank account's about to take a big hit here.
I know. And it was hard because, obviously they have, Savvy's Workshop, where you can build your own lightsaber. I mean, that sounds super cool. But the one thing that I don't think I'll be able to walk out of there without is from the Droid Depot. And I don't know if there was anything there that you saw, but that's another interesting thing. Like they're taking the idea of building your lightsaber. You can pull pieces off a conveyor belt and build your own droid. But they will have some, they said, that are already pre-built. And the one that was like, oh my God, is a Rex.
Yep, that was the one I was thinking of too.
They put a Rex who will happily play whatever music
Rex.
you have on your smartphone through an intergalactic Bluetooth connection.
I love it's an intergalactic.
I know.
That's great. No, I thought the same thing. I'm like, we're going to have to get Rex. I know.
Right. Although the C-3PO, which talks to you and kind of gives you grief if you put the head on backwards.
Yeah, I think that's pretty funny too.
Great too.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love all that. I mean, I thought if you looked at some of the pictures out there, they have a lot of Jedi outfits that look fascinating. The lightsabers look beautiful for theme park lightsabers, which we've seen them being able to build them before. But these look like they've taken to another level. I just like that that there's so many interesting things, and what I really like about it is that these things are not going to be from places you could have bought elsewhere.
Right.
These are only made for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and so they call it. It's not evergreen.
Right.
This is specifically Star Wars Galaxy's Edge merchandise.
Right.
Cool.
No, which is very, very cool and makes it much more unique that you can go in there and find things. And they had a lot of different type of shops of what they sold, and obviously they're going to have shops that are going to meet like what you would typically think at a Disney park. Whether you're talking about stuffed toys or whatever. But just, again, all the different designs of what their shops are going to be like and the theming is really, I feel like I have no real good words, and I keep saying the same thing over and over again.
Well, all we can say is wow over and over
right.
again. Because when it
Amazing.
came out, I was like, wow. You woke me up in the middle of the night. You're like, you're going to have so much, because it came out in the middle of the night. You were still awake. I go to bed early. I wake up early. She told me, like, you're going to have some fun stuff to read in the morning.
That's right.
Because she had already seen it. So I got to check it out in the morning. I was like, wow. I just couldn't believe all this crazy stuff that came out Wednesday night. It was insane.
Yeah, and I knew if I had you read any of it at that point, you were not going back to bed. So I had to use Twitter as my outlet to look at this stuff.
That was good. You were right on top of it because it came out so late. You were able to be there on top of it when most of the East Coast was asleep, because we're on the West Coast. You get this stuff.
Right.
It's a different time for us. So the people were able to wake up to all this wonderful stuff and all this wonderful news, and really cool.
Right. All our friends and listeners in Europe who were
right. What?
No, I'm kidding.
Another thing that was interesting, and this is something that actually when we were talking last week about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and we brought this up with Rob LeBerry out there, and that is, yes, sure enough, the Play Disney app is going to play a big role. And it's funny that we were talking about that last week, and it came out this week that that's exactly what's going to happen.
Right. And I don't know. Do we want to give spoilers on that?
We can just tell you that there's going to be a lot of things. I'll tell you, it's the first land that's going to be developed that is wrapped around the app being able to be used in many different ways. You can look up, and we don't need to spoil it for you. Some of the stuff that we talked about, we speculated about last week, is coming true. So if you listen to last week's show, some of that is out there.
Right, yeah.
But you can look it up online. But there's a lot of great stuff, and you're going to be able to be really immersed and have some fun with the app while you're going through Galaxy's Edge. So you don't even have to be in Oga's Cantina, Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run, none of that.
Right.
You can still have a great time if you don't want to wait 6 hours or whatever the line is going to be like for it there.
Right, exactly.
You can still enjoy some time at Galaxy's Edge and by using the Play Disney app.
Right. It's great that they're looking at different ways to, keep the entertainment while you're immersed into that area, and that, things like having missions and stuff are really a great idea, And one of the things we haven't really emphasized, in talking about being immersed in this is the music.
Yeah,
and
of course.
John Williams was also very much involved in, coming up with the music specifically for Galaxy's Edge, which just helps continue that linkage with the original universe.
The master is there creating the sound that you know and you love, and it is all about Star Wars.
Right.
It's going to be great. We're excited. It's only just now for us here on the West Coast for the Disneyland Resort. It's just a couple months away.
Yeah.
We expect there'll be some soft openings. We're hoping some soft openings are going to happen April, maybe May, as they hope for it sounds like it'll be a June opening.
Right.
And if they're already kind of going through some of the attraction itself, some media, some influencers are going through that.
Right.
Obviously, it's mostly laid out, ready to go. They just need to work out some bugs. We're hoping to hear some things, annual pass holders, D23 members, DVC members. If you're involved with anything, keep an eye out for possibilities of soft openings. I mean, don't keep an eye out.
They're
don't
not
pay
going to
attention.
do anything.
They're not going to happen. So no, seriously, check out for that. We got to do it a couple years ago when Avatar: The World of Pandora opened up. We got to do a soft opening for that just a couple days before it actually opened to the general public, and was really, really cool. And then as our chance to ride Flight of Passage before you had to wait 3-4 hours for it, which was really, really nice.
And even with that, there was a little bit of a wait, but it was, again, with as entertaining as that queue was, you really didn't seem to mind it at all. And I wonder if they're going to do similar, where you just go in for a set amount of hours, and then the next group comes in.
That's what they did with Pandora. Was you had like 2-3 hours of your window to go into this, get into the park, and then you came out, and then they said, and the next group was waiting in line, and it was their turn to go in. So you just had to kind of schedule your time when you could make it into it, and it just happened to fall when we were planning a trip anyway out there. So we just kind of got lucky really in that regard. So very cool. So that was it. I don't think you have anything else. That was a ton of news.
No, there was
There's so much stuff. I mean, we didn't go completely into detail of all this stuff, but there's so much stuff out there about what's happening with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and we're really excited about it. We'd love to know what you think about the news that came out this week, what you expect. Would you please contact us and let us know.
Absolutely. And let us know what things you're looking forward to. I mean, obviously everything, but
Right.
if there's something particular that really spoke to you, we want to hear about it.
Yeah, I saw so many things on Twitter.
I know.
I think at Dilla's Diz, we were talking about earlier, it was like this is going to be like when you walk into the crew cabin of the Millennium Falcon, there's going to be a lot of grown men crying in there. And I had to concur with that. Yes,
Exactly.
I know I'm going to break into tears getting to get onto the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
I think that many of you, just like us, are going to be doing the same thing. And they're going to be wiping up tears. Very often be a mop in there. There's going to be so many grown men tears in the
They'll be
Millennium
selling
Falcon.
tissue boxes.
So good. Yeah. It makes sense, actually. Should do that.
Right?
So that's our main topics of the week. Let's continue on with it. It's kind of a Disney main topic / Disney story of the week. So let's continue on with our Disney stories of the week. And let's go a completely different direction. And that's that going to see Disney Cruise Line this week released their 2020 summer schedule.
Pretty exciting.
There's some good stuff out there. So this straight from a Disney Cruise Line press release. In summer 2020, Disney Cruise Line will embark on a variety of itineraries around the world, including a long-awaited return to Greece and the addition of 5 first-time ports of call in Europe, along with an expanded European season aboard the Disney Magic. Adventures will continue across the fleet with sailings to Alaska, the Caribbean, and the Bahamas. Those are the usual things. But the interesting thing was that Disney Cruise Line now feels because there was a long time when Greece wasn't considered safe.
Right, exactly.
And Disney will be, believe me, if there's anybody who's going to wait until they really feel it's safe, it's going to be Disney Cruise Line. So they feel it's safe to go back to Greece. I always wanted to go. I don't think we're going to be doing one of these sailings, but it's good to know that they're going back there. So someday we can go visit Greece.
I know. That's very exciting. And of all cruise liners, like you said, that you'd want to feel safe and feel happy about going on would be a Disney cruise.
Yes, no question about that. And great for the whole family. And it's a learning opportunity to, to go back to where some of the dawn of man was in Greece and Rome and all that area.
I wonder if there's a movie or something that's going to link because, they did a lot with Scotland when Brave came out.
Yeah, they did Norway with Frozen tied in. I mean, it was a little bit after, but they tied that in. I don't know of anything I can think of specifically, but still, I think it's just great ports of call and interesting. They are doing a Broadway version of Hercules or an off-Broadway version of Hercules. So I don't think that ties in, but it is interesting. More from the press release. After a 5-year hiatus, the Disney Magic will return to Greece in summer 2020 as part of 3 special Mediterranean voyages departing from Rome. During one 12-night and 2 9-night cruises, guests can marvel at the beautiful landscapes and archaeological, I can say it, wonders of destinations like, Piraeus, the gateway to Athens, Katakolon, near ancient Olympia, and the islands of Santorini, Mykonos, and Crete. So the Greek Isles.
Yes.
I've never been, but they look spectacular. I'd really love to visit them sometime.
Absolutely.
Each of these unique Mediterranean itineraries combines a selection of stops in Greece with visits to other notable cities in the region. 2 of the sailings include a new port of call in Messina, Italy, where guests can visit landmarks in Sicily, such as Mount Etna, the highest and most active volcano in Europe, or the Piazza del Duomo, the city's historic center. The third features a return to the Pearl of the Adriatic. That's Dubrovnik, Croatia, which is another place that is supposed to be spectacular to visit for the first time in 5 years. So really cool sailings.
Yeah, very exciting.
Some other interesting news out there is that, we'll just talk about the basics. Yes, the Wonder is going back to Alaska, not a surprise. Fantasy will continue to do 7-day Eastern and Western Caribbean sailings. The Dream will be doing its usual 3- and 4-day Bahamas cruises. Nothing different there. The other interesting note came out that the Disney's Vacation Club 2020 member cruise was going back to Alaska. They're going back and doing another 7-night Alaska sailing that'll be on August 24th. If you're interested in that, if you're a Disney Vacation Club member, bookings for that will open up on April 6th of this year.
Wow.
So, yeah. We already have a sailing for 2020. I don't know if we can throw that in there as well because we're doing the Panama Canal really.
Right.
That's really cool news, and I'm interesting that they're going back to Alaska.
Yeah, that'll be great. And like we've talked in the past, Alaska is amazing.
It's my favorite cruise destination.
Great.
I love it.
Way to see Alaska is via a cruise anyway. So, wow.
So, yeah. So if you're thinking about booking any of these, the date is coming up this current week, and we're recording this on Sunday, March 3rd. Tomorrow, Monday, March 4th, if you're a Platinum Castaway Club member or a Golden Oak Club member, you have your shot to start booking them at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific time. On Tuesday, March 5th, if you're a Gold Castaway Club member, it opens up for you, same time. Silver Club members, Disney Vacation Club members who haven't, well, I guess if you've cruised less than, you're not a Gold member yet. Right. And Adventures by Disney Insiders, it opens up for you on Wednesday, March 6th, same time. And then for everybody else, if you've never sailed Disney before, Thursday, March 7th. And if you want to book these, you can go to the Disney Cruise Line website or call 800-388-4513. So... great stuff.
It is.
It's always exciting when the new Disney Cruise Line itineraries come out. It always makes us dream of what our next sailing is going to be.
I know. Do we change?
No, I want to do the Panama Canal.
We can always do Panama Canal.
Anyway.
Alaska.
I know. I love Alaska too, but we can do Alaska another time. I want to do the Panama Canal.
Do we arm wrestle or flip a coin?
I'll tell you what. One thing I know about Alaska, the cruise, is that probably the price we paid for that 14-day Panama Canal.
Right, that's true.
Probably what it's a 7-day Alaska cruise. That's the only one problem with cruising Alaska with Disney is that those are highly sought after cruises, and they tend to be a little bit on the pricier side. So just keep that in mind. Let's get onward, and we'll move to some park news. Just a really quick hit on some park news. It came out just a day or so ago that Jesse's Critter Carousel is close to opening finally at Pixar Pier at Disney California Adventure Park. This straight from the Disney Parks blog. Jesse's Critter Carousel will open in April. Yes. So they say mosey on over to a giant toy carousel starring Jessie, the yodeling cowgirl, and a friendly bunch of desert critters for a rootin' tootin' romp inspired by the Toy Story film. Saddle up on a whimsical snake, armadillo, turtle, bunny, and more from the world of Woody's Roundup. This newly reimagined attraction will have you yelling, "Giddy up!"
Yeah.
So it's good. I mean, the one thing about when Pixar Pier opened, we were excited. Right. Pixar Pier opened last year, late May, early June. I can't remember. It may have been actually late June when it opened up last year. Yeah. But we were excited when it finally opened up. But there's one thing about it is that it wasn't quite finished.
Right.
They only had 2 attractions open. Of course, the Incredicoaster, which is great, and the Pixar Pal Around, which is good. But they were just missing that extra oomph out there. And so the Critter Carousel finally opening up, that's going to fill it up more. And then when you eventually get the Inside Out, Emotional Whirlwind, when that opens up, they expect that to open up later this year as well.
Right.
It's going to feel a lot more complete.
Right. So, no, that is true. And, it gives another option for the little ones.
Right. Yes.
To enjoy.
And there are a lot of pictures circulating right now because there's still a fence around the carousel, but you can see now that you can see Jessie kind of peeking over.
Jessie, yes.
Peeking over the wall like she's ready. She's like, "Come on, guys, we're ready. Let's start inviting you onto their carousel. Let's go." So very cool news, and we're excited for that to open up here very soon. One more Disney story for you of this week, and that is that reports say Disney is developing a new series for Disney Plus based on the iconic villains. This from Variety.com, and it's based on sources. It's a rumor. It's not official yet, but here's what they're saying. This series is currently entitled Book of Enchantments and will be based on the Villains book series penned by Serena Valentino. It will tell the origin stories of Disney characters like Ursula from The Little Mermaid, the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, which I guess he's sort of a villain at the beginning, but I don't really consider him a villain. He's
we kind of already know that backstory.
Sort of. Maybe it'll go more in depth. It'll be interesting. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty and the Wicked Queen from Snow White. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, sounds a little bit like Once
Upon a Time?
Right.
Yeah, maybe. And we loved Once Upon a Time, at least as it was early on in the show. We really loved it. We never missed it. And we even got to see some of their panels at Comic-Con,
Right,
which is really
right,
fun
yeah.
as well. Michael Seitzman will write and produce the series under his Maniac Productions banner, and ABC Signature Studios will produce. Again, this is based on sources and from Variety.com.
Right.
So, very cool. It
Interesting.
sounds interesting.
Right.
I'm all for more out there. And
Yes.
villains, everybody loves the villains.
Oh,
And
I
that's one
know,
thing
I
about
know.
Disney is they have such great villains. And
Yes,
they're so
yes.
meaty, and you can get into some interesting stories. with them,
Right,
so.
right. Yeah. And they do a great job coming up with very creative backstories of, how a lot of them, weren't necessarily all that evil to begin with.
Right. Or
And-
there's a reason why they kind of,
Right.
you can, when you get to some of these, and that's some of the live action things we're getting into, is you're kind of realizing why they've gotten to this point. And, yes, they're evil, they're doing evil things, but you can kind of see why it
Right.
came to be this
what
point.
happened
Yeah.
that turned
Right.
them in a different direction.
They've made them more three-dimensional characters. They're
Right.
not just the wicked stepmother or whatever.
Right,
And that's all you
exactly.
know about them is that they're
Right.
just mean.
Yes.
They're just mean to Cinderella,
Right.
whatever, So, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's my Disney stories of the week. I believe Michelle actually has a Disney story this week, and the best thing about this, I didn't forget.
Yay!
So,
And it's not maybe as interesting or as delightful as some of yours, but
your stories are always delightful, as are your fun facts.
yeah. You're too kind. So I know in the past we've discussed how Disney is close to owning a majority stake in Hulu.
Yes.
And now they're reporting that they're looking to expand that acquisition a little bit more by 10% more through AT&T's ownership of Hulu, that streaming service. So putting the math together, Disney already owns 30% of Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the process of acquiring 21st Century Fox that also owns 30%, so that would give them 60%. So this purchase stake would give them a 70% ownership of Hulu. And I think we've also kind of shared part of this is they know with Disney Plus, they kind of really have to be conscientious of having family type content.
Yeah, I think they want to go PG-13 and below.
Right,
I mean,
right.
As far as more focused towards families.
Exactly. So Hulu is kind of like the Touchstone streaming service, right? So Hulu would give them the ability to have, first of all, have streaming services internationally, but also to be able to, change the direction to a little bit more adult type themes as well. So, and the other interesting part of this was that Comcast actually owns 30% stake of Hulu. And they are not planning to sell that by any means. And that's according to their CEO, Steve Burke. But what was really intriguing about this is that, if anything were to happen, with that 21st Century Fox deal or whatever, Disney doesn't want to necessarily lose having more ownership.
Right.
Especially with Comcast being out there saying they're not going to sell it.
Yeah, they want to be sure that they have the place to put some of these more adult content type shows, and that is going to be
Right.
Hulu. But
Right. And AT&T definitely said they want to sell. So it's not a matter of, if. It's they do want to sell, And so I started thinking about it. Gee, if Comcast has 30% and they acquire the AT&T, they'll have 40, which would still be right now more than what Disney has. So interesting way to look at what where they're trying to position themselves and, to secure that ability to have the ability to drive what Hulu does.
Right. Another interesting note on this, and this is a story I saw just in passing this week, and I don't know the exact details behind it, but looks like the Disney and Fox deal kind of got past the last major sticking point, which was a deal in Brazil. They had to agree to it in Brazil, and once they got past that, we're pretty close to that deal being done. They say, I think it was actually our friends at WDW News Today had the story on it that it could be done within the month, and that will be moving forward from there.
Right.
So that's good. That's good. Michelle's great stories. Always has good stories. Always has fun facts. Always has great stories.
Money, the stock market.
Yeah. She's on top of it. She's on top of the money stuff. But she's got to realize how to pay for all this Star Wars Galaxy's Edge merchandise we're about to pay for.
I know, right?
To purchase. But she also, along with great stories and fun facts, she also has the best vacation tips. If you don't know, we always wrap up our show with giving you some sort of tip to help you on your next vacation, maybe your next day at the parks, next Disney cruise, whatever it may be. We try and give you some sort of tip every single week, and Michelle always has the best ones. So because she's wonderful, beautiful, fantastic, and everybody loves her, and she has the best tips, we always let her go first. So without any further ado, let's get to Michelle's tip of the week.
You're so sweet, and I'm glad you don't ever put it to a vote with our listeners,
No.
who has the better one.
I'm not going to subject myself to that because I know how that's going to go.
You have winner ones.
Yeah.
So actually, I have. Well, one is not a vacation tip, but I did want to throw it in because it really kind of tied in with our main topic of the 90s, is that if you really want to see an incredible story that talks about the turmoil that the animation studios went through in the 90s and shortly after that, there's a movie out there called Waking Sleeping Beauty. And it really covers a lot of the things that were going on with a lot of these names that we talked about, you brought up, which was, Michael Eisner, Katzenberg, and Roy Disney, and, how they were addressing what was going on in the time with animation and how it was kind of being pushed aside. And then with the tragic passing of Frank Wells and kind of the expectation that Katzenberg would get involved in that. It's really just a really interesting film. So if you get a chance to watch that, we would highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. It is really interesting, deep dive into what happened with Disney in the late 80s. Into the 90s, and how the animation department kind of fell by the wayside a bit and then reemerged as this juggernaut that it's become now. But there were some bumps along the way, including a lot of bumps near the end with the Eisner, Katzenberg, Roy E. Disney relationship there. So interesting stuff.
It was.
Check it out. Highly recommend it.
Thank you. So, and I agree, highly recommend it. So, the tips I have today really have to do with how to make sure you have the best time at a Disney park and avoid some problems. And it's just a couple little things I want to put out there. One is in terms of making sure your phone battery lasts throughout your day. And we've talked about how now the Play Disney Parks app is going to really be important with a lot of things. You want to make sure that you have your phone battery lasting for the whole day. So some things that obviously you can do is have one of those flash rechargers available, and also look at maybe turning your phone to airplane mode, especially when you're in certain areas like Indiana Jones and Soaring. Those really zap you, so that would be a good time to turn it into airplane mode. The other thing, in terms of making sure you don't have a problem in the parks or have a better time, is we know you're going to be walking a lot, taking a lot of steps. And so you might want to consider investing in some runner's socks. It's something that would have more of a wicking and protect your feet more than just what you would have with regular cotton socks.
Not a bad idea to have a change of socks, too, if you have the ability to change them, especially in the Orlando summers.
Right. That is a good point. But yeah, with those cotton socks, sometimes they can just, absorb and hold the sweat and, not good for your feet either.
Not at all.
The other thing is if you're traveling with kids, teach them how to recognize a cast member through their name tag, that it's that oval white name tag, and let them know that if in the unlikely reason they get separated, they can look for a cast member and tell them they're lost. The cast member knows what to do in those situations. So from there on, they'll take control and make sure you get reunited. But having them to be aware of that. I know that sometimes people talk about arranging locations to meet in case. If you're going to do that, don't pick a really popular thing like in front of the castle, because everybody's in front of the castle, and that's a hard place to find somebody you're looking for. So, and the last thing is avoiding those meltdowns, and I know we've all had those moments where we've been at a Disney park and just cringed seeing an adult screaming at their child, or, a child just crying because they're suffering because they're just so tired. And, going to a Disney park is wonderful, and we all tend to have that, bad judgment of just go, 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 go.
Right.
And so really planning for that in advance to make sure you have some downtime. And I know, like, when you're looking at, say Disneyland, and you're just going for the day, it's hard. You don't have maybe a hotel site to look for to have that break during the day. But, really plan then some sit down, quiet time. You might be, at a location at one of the, restaurants, just sitting down, having some, coffee and pastry or something like that. Make it fun, but make sure you're putting some effort into pre-planning your downtime so that you don't have those meltdowns and you can just totally enjoy the park. So, just to summarize, I know they're all 4 different topics, but they're all just ideas to help you have the best time possible at a Disney park.
Those are great tips.
Well,
As always, Michelle has the best tips. Those are great.
No, we haven't heard yours yet.
Yeah, no, mine doesn't compare to yours. Your tip is fantastic and definitely more important for people who get out there to the parks. You said it. We see it all the time.
Right.
The adults are tired. The kids are tired. It's a bad mix. Find some resting times one way or another. If you can get away from the park and get a little rest in, that's great. If you can't, find some little periods where you can get a people mover. Is a wonderful place to just get a few minutes, just kind of sit and just relax for a little bit. Plus, you get great views of the park when you're at Magic Kingdom Park.
Right, that's true.
And, some of the other attractions that are indoor, maybe they don't seem that interesting, but if they're, as a 10-minute or 15-minute something in a theater or whatever, where you can just sit and get out of the heat or get out of the rain or whatever. It's just a huge thing. Also, hydrating, which is my big thing,
good point, right?
is a huge thing. And
Very
also keeping the blood sugar up, even if it's a little snack, like some little apple slices.
Right.
It could be something healthy or it could be whatever. But, just something to kind of keep your blood sugar at the right level as you're going through. It's really important. So good tip.
Thank you.
Sweetheart. Let's get on to my secondary tip here. And since we were talking just a little bit ago about the summer 2020 cruise itineraries coming out, I thought we'd go into what might happen if you're on the cruise and say this is your first Disney cruise and you enjoy your first Disney cruise. And so you want to go on to another one. Well, the best thing you can do is to book while you're on board that
is a great
Disney cruise. And I'm going to tell you why that is. For those of you that haven't experienced it before, first of all, a lot of people think you have to book a specific cruise when you're on board. And that is not the case. You can book, you can book a specific cruise. You can look through the schedules, book one. But you can also book a placeholder cruise if you don't have any idea of what you want to do. You can book what's called a placeholder cruise. And then when you figure out what itinerary you want later, you can put that towards that. Now, here's the benefit of booking while you're on board. And the biggest thing is that there is a 10% discount on your next sailing outside of a couple blackout dates and concierge. If you're booking concierge, you don't get the discount. But if you're doing this just as a regular cabin, whether it be inside, ocean view, veranda, whatever, you will get a 10% discount, and that could save you hundreds, if not thousands, depending on what kind of cruise you are booking. Also, another thing is that you will also get on that sailing stateroom credit. So if it's a 3 to 6 night cruise, you'll get $100 thrown your way, just that you can just use whatever you want to spend it on.
Or on that next
on
cruise.
that next sailing. If it's a 7 night or more, you get $200 per stateroom. So that's an extra $100 or $200 to have out there. It's a discounted deposit on 7+ night sailings. It's only 10%. If you're doing a placeholder sailing, where you just you don't have an actual cruise determined, it's only $250 for your deposit. So you get a discounted deposit. So you're also not breaking your bank when you're on board, and it gives you time to decide on it. I mean, it doesn't change the price of it overall, but at least when you're holding it, it doesn't cost that much money. The best thing about this is, yes, you want to do it, but if for some reason things happen, you decide to take other vacations, you don't end up cruising, it is 100% refundable as long as you cancel your cruise without, earlier than the final full pay in full date. You get 100% of that deposit back. So it's just going out there. You might save money. You might get some shipboard credit.
Right.
It's just a great way of doing it. And you can also book for your friends and family, even if they're not on that cruise with you. If they're going to be booked, if you think they're going to go on the next cruise with you,
Right.
you can book cabins for them as well. All you need is to have their full legal names, and you can book them for them as well. So you can extend the savings onto your friends and family as well.
Win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win, and you should definitely do it. If you'll go on a Disney cruise and you enjoy it, one of the first things you should be doing is getting to that future cruise desk and do it early in your sailing because everybody goes to it at the end and you're waiting forever. Although it's much easier. They have some forms, especially if you're just doing a placeholder. But even if you're not doing a placeholder, you can just fill out forms, tell them what you're looking for, and just drop it off there. But if you're actually looking to talk to the person who's coordinated the associate there, the sales associate, it can be a little bit more of a wait near the end of the cruise. So do it early.
Right. And the other thing is, I know a lot of people like to use a travel agent. Mm-hmm. So you can, if you are doing that booking on the cruise line, you can also have it designated to be managed by your travel agent.
That's true.
So you don't have to relinquish that if it's more comfortable for you to have a travel agent dealing with your cruise arrangements. So.
Absolutely true. So take advantage of that and
Yes,
save some money.
That's an awesome tip.
On your second, third, fourth, whatever Disney Cruise Line sailing you have coming up.
Great tip. See, you're saving people lots of money.
There we go.
Good for you. Yay.
Yay. But it's still not as good as your tip.
I don't think so.
It is a good tip.
Numero uno. Okay.
So, all right. So that's it for this week. We're wrapping it up at a more reasonable time this week than we have the last few. And this is kind of more around the time we want to keep these podcasts. And I'm not saying that we won't have some that go organically go longer, but this is kind of more around the time we want to keep these podcasts at. I just think it's a better time for us.
Right.
Next week, we've got some exciting things coming up. We were just talking about it for our main topic.
Yes.
Tomorrow, March 4th, early in the afternoon, Michelle and I are screening Captain Marvel.
Can't wait.
We are very excited. We're going to be out there on social media talking about it immediately after we're giving our first impressions, and then I can actually do a written review on it. We can on the Tuesday morning. So expect sometime on Tuesday we'll actually have a written review. And then, of course, we will be definitely reviewing it next week. And I think we're going to do it a little differently this time is because by the time this comes out, some of you will have already seen it. We're going to do a period of it that's going to be spoiler-free and another period where we may go through a couple spoilers, but we will give you all warnings, alerts, all sounds we can. We're going to chapter mark it so you'll know where you need to stop if you haven't seen it yet. But I just think since some of these episodes don't get listened to until well after the film is out, like if we limit ourselves to just spoiler free, which was great.
Yes.
It kind of I think it hurts us a little bit later on when people want to hear what we have to say about some of the great moments that happen in these films.
And we miss the opportunity to interact with you all on your thoughts about it because we are always trying to avoid those spoilers.
And there are those people that don't care about the spoilers, which is fine too. Whatever you fall into, we're going to make it so it works for you. So just be prepared for that. So another thing we'll be doing is, yes, it is Disneyland After Dark 90s Night. That is Thursday of this week. Exciting. We're going to that, and we will discuss that and tell you all about that and what went down for that. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing this week. And if you want to, check in what we're doing all week, please follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. And if you ever want to write us about anything, tell us what you think of the show. If you have any questions for us, if you wanted us to go over some tips for you, whatever you want, you can always email us at HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Right. And we do want to hear from you. And so if you do see the movie this week, feel free to let us know about that as well. And, we can include some of your feedback in with our conversations about it at next week's podcast.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you thought of Captain Marvel. Yeah. We're excited to see it.
Right. Hopefully and we'll give you credit.
Yes, of course. Always give you credit. We love all our Hyperion adventurers, and we always give you credit. We appreciate you joined us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere where you find podcasts. If there's some place that you normally find podcasts and we're not there, please let us know because we'd like to get on to as many avenues as possible. We do have a website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. You can check us out there, but better yet, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. And if you have a moment, tell your friends and family about this podcast. Let them know that we exist and that you enjoy it and they might enjoy it too. but also a rating on one of these sites. Just clicking on the stars would be fantastic. And if you have a little more time, a review would be so wonderful. One, it helps us be a better podcast, but it also helps people know that we exist out there. We rank higher on the whatever podcast area it is, so that people can find us a little more easily.
Absolutely. And for those of you who have done that in the past, we love you. Thank you so much. And we've really appreciated the feedback as well. So
we've gotten some great reviews, especially a few over the last few weeks, and some even more ratings. And we appreciate everybody who's taken the time to do that. You guys are wonderful. Thank you very much. So that's it for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Hyperion Adventures podcast, and we look forward to sharing some time again with you next week. Again, it'll be a little more 90s next week, apparently. Until that time, I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope that you have a magical week.